I'm fine. I'm good. I'm very feel.
You are Phil.
I'm feel. I'm very feel.
Отхожу к тебе, чтобы спросить, ты мне дашь слово, ты мне.
How are you feeling?
I'm feel. I'm very feel.
Heads up, heroes and adventurers, shield maidens, and barbarians. Welcome back to the channel. I am the Ancient Gamer, and this time out, I've got a brand new, fresh load order coming your way for Skyrim Anniversary Edition on the Xbox Series X. I'm going to give you everything you need to make your game look and play exactly like it does in this video. Don't forget to make the video happy. Give it a like. Likes make the YouTube world go around. If you dig my stuff and enjoy this channel, do yourself a solid and subscribe to the Ancient Gamer. It feels good. Ring the bell for notifications. That feels good too. I'm really trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by summer, 10,000 by the end of the year. I'm going to need all the help I can get. Hopefully I'll shoot way past that. So what is the fantasy RPG load order? For many of us Skyrim junkies, our first Elder Scrolls game was Oblivion, or Morrowind, even Daggerfall. As much as we love Skyrim, some of us can't help but mourn, at least a little bit, some of what's been lost from the older games in the series as each new game becomes a little more streamlined and easier for newcomers to access. Each new game has gotten better in many ways too, though. No doubt Skyrim is the best looking, best running game in the series with the most free-flowing gameplay and combat. So what if we could add back in some of the RPG elements and depth of the older games? More robust magic and enchanting, character classes and racial characteristics so that unique individual character builds and playstyles are different for real. In other words, make Skyrim more of a true RPG while still allowing it to be a great action game. As far as the graphics go, the aim is to make Skyrim look a little more like a classic medieval fantasy world, more like a successor or follow-up to Oblivion. If Oblivion has a sort of medieval Western European look and Skyrim is like a cross between Alaska and Norway, my intention is to make Skyrim look more like Switzerland, or Bavaria, maybe parts of northern Italy. The fantasy RPG load order for Xbox Series X is definitely my largest, most comprehensive, and muscular load order. I like to make load orders that are complete, but leave you room to add mods if you want, to make it your own. The fantasy RPG load order is no different, but there is a lot less reserve space left over to work with. With this load order, I've left very few aspects of Skyrim untouched. My first priority with any load order is to make sure it's stable and that game performance isn't an issue. By stable, I mean long-term, healthy save file stable. The goal is to be able to play it for 6 months, a year, 18 months, 300 plus hours if you want. We all know that we can leave our Xbox on, go into the other room and fart and fuck up a Bethesda save file. They are notably fragile and prone to save bloat and file corruption, especially with lots of mods running. With that in mind, for the gameplay and RPG mod section, I've chosen only time-tested, proven stable mods that have been around a while and are known to play nicely with lots of other mods. All of these are great and very popular mods on their own, but together, combined, they go a long way towards making Skyrim more of a true RPG, with more robust magic, enchanting, and individual character builds. As for where each goes in the load order, later in the video I'll be giving you a full, comprehensive load order chart that shows you exactly where to load everything, top to bottom. The first of the gameplay mods we're going to add is Character Creation Overhaul. CCO is an excellent mod I've used for years that adds the character class system from Oblivion into Skyrim, along with birth signs and dynamic racial abilities. Next is Imperious Races of Skyrim, which further tweaks racial differences and buffs to make them even more distinct. A quick note though, you won't see Imperious Races as a mod in the final load order because we are using Divine People Celestial all-in-one as our beauty mod, the mod that makes our characters and NPCs pretty and handsome. Imperious is integrated with and rolled into Divine People Celestial. Why Divine People? I use Divine People Celestial all-in-one and Divine Skins and Bodies, Beast Races included, because they are a 2-mod all-in-one solution for all body and beauty needs. They are made for Xbox, they're not a PC port, they look great and are super stable. Body and beauty mods are a common cause of instability and poor performance in many load orders. By using Divine, we don't have to worry about that. Apocalypse, Magic of Skyrim, greatly expands and enhances the magic system in Skyrim, adding 155 new spells and cool spellcasting animations. Apocalypse is the #1 most used and highest rated magic mod for Skyrim. What Apocalypse does for magic, Summer Mist does for enchanting, adding 120 additional and neat enchantments to the table. Ordinator, Perks of Skyrim adds a whopping 400 new perks to Skyrim, completely overhauling the skill trees. This mod exponentially increases the number of unique, distinct character builds and how different each build actually plays in-game. With all those added perks, you're really going to want that extra perk point every other level. At this point, I can't even play Skyrim without alternate start. Being able to start a new, fresh rolled character in a wide variety of settings really helps with role-playing too. A very popular feature of Oblivion that was supposed to be in Skyrim 2 but got cut before release was the arena. Faction Pit Fighter adds a quest and a faction, some of the arena lore of Oblivion, and the fighting back into Skyrim. We're also going to add Immersive Patrols Lite. This mod makes the Imperial and Stormcloak patrols more dynamic, a part of the game world you can encounter, including skirmishes that sometimes provide awesome looting opportunities. Why the light version? Because we're already adding so many gameplay mods, asking our game to be flexible already, why push it with the large battles version? Finally, we'll bring diversity and inclusion to the dragon community with the Diverse Dragons collection. This is a stellar mod that makes all dragons look better, but also adds 28 new dragons. Okay, for the graphics in the Fantasy RPG Skyrim load order, we're going to start with a Noble Skyrim as a base, and these are the Noble Skyrim mods that you want and the order that they should be loaded in. Why Noble Skyrim? Well, Noble Skyrim is older, it's venerable, it's time-tested, it doesn't crash your game, it's extremely well made, and very few graphics overhauls lend themselves to sort of a fantasy look more than Noble Skyrim. So now we're going to focus in on the mods that we add to Noble Skyrim to achieve the fantasy RPG look that this load order has. The first one's going to be Leaf Eater 3-in-1 tree overhaul. This is a small little mod that adds just the right amount of trees, big and small, and some foliage to Solitude, Windhelm, and Whiterun. Next up is Dawnstar, a city full of life, which does the same thing for Dawnstar. Your tree mod is going to be Enhanced Vanilla Trees Lush, makes all the vanilla trees look much nicer, a little bit bigger, more full, and add some bigger trees too. For our grass mod, we're going to go with Verdant with Tundra Blooms, and so my guess is that Robin Christie, you were probably right. Verdant with Tundra Blooms is Verdant, but it's a little bit greener than Verdant, which works really well with this load order, and a lot of the dead twig textures in Verdant have been replaced with Tundra Blooms. It's very beautiful. One of the best grass mods I've ever used. If you're going to use Verdant with Tundra Blooms, you also want to grab Verdant Bloom's Missing Fern texture. Apparently there's a Missing Fern texture somewhere in Verdant with Tundra Blooms, and this fixes that, makes it all shipshape. The next mod is a greener Skyrim, and this mod just turns the tundra and the ground cover and parts of Skyrim green. Just the right shade of green too, and not green everywhere. Just green mostly in the Rift, the Reach, and the tundra around Whiterun. If you go to parts of the map where it really shouldn't be green, it's not green, and it's just the right amount of green in just the right places. Next would be HD photorealistic Ivy, because why not? This is a great little detail mod. Makes a real improvement to Ivy, which on the side of different buildings and in cities is something that really contributes to the fantasy RPG look. Next up we have Kabloom, which creates little happy splashes of color all over your Skyrim map, where the lowly mountain flower used to be. It's basically just a mountain flower retexture. Great little mod. Next up is HD LOD's Textures, which is the LOD mod for Noble Skyrim, and it's really kind of a must-have. It does a whole lot to sharpen up your far-off views to a much greater distance. And if you want the LODs in Skyrim to match a greener Skyrim to blend better with it, you're going to want to get Grass LOD Noise Green Tint, which just creates a sort of a dark green visual noise off in the distance, which helps everything to blend better with a greener Skyrim. For any load order, Realistic Water 2 is really your go-to water mod, and it's no different with this load order. We finish things off with Vivid Weather's Definitive Edition. Why Vivid? We picked Vivid because, you know, it's vivid. And you really, in a fantasy RPG load order, you really want the colors to be nice and vivid and pop. The only change we're going to make is we're going to add the Vivid Weathers add-on, Summer Seasons, which is a limiter which prevents the game from loading any of the winter or fall weathers and just limits it to the summer and spring weathers, which is exactly what we're looking for. So this is it, your entire graphics module, complete and all finished. Just load everything up in this exact order and your game will look exactly like it does in the video. Now, if you don't really care or you're not interested in the RPG elements mods or the gameplay mods, and all you want is for your game to look like it does in this video, then these are the only mods you need. Load them up in this order. As far as graphics go, you're finished. You're done. These are all the mods you need. Now that all the graphics mods are assembled and installed, let's take a look at some comparisons with vanilla Skyrim. How does the fantasy RPG load order look? Does it make Skyrim look and feel a little more like Oblivion? Let's find out. So that is the fantasy RPG load order in comparison to Skyrim. It definitely injects just a little bit of an Oblivion feel to your game. A little more Switzerland, a little more Northern Italy, a little less Alaska, a little less Norway. Or at the very least, maybe bring sort of a springtime feel, to the province of Skyrim. So now, because it's such a beautiful day in the neighborhood, we're going to put on our sneakers and our little cardigan and go for a walk around the game world just to see how some of the other graphics mods affect other areas of the game. For starters, let's take a look at this mod we feature here in this load order called Solitude Expansion. Now this is a mod this is just really a terrific little mod. And I say little because it's only, I think, about 50 or 60 megabytes. It's not a huge mod for what it delivers. But essentially it turns Skyrim into a much bigger city, more representative of what this great capital city of the northern province of Skyrim, should look like. This is a city now where the size and the scope of it sort of is a little more befitting to the place that it holds in the lore of Tamriel. And essentially what this mod does is it really changes up the docks and the waterfront area. And you can totally see that. And, I don't want to make this video 35 minutes, so I can't show you everything that this mod does and adds, but it's comprehensive. And here we're going through the gate. This is the gate leading up. There's even a bathhouse up here off to the left on your way into Solitude. It's pretty badass. This is a cool mod. Highly recommend it. Now we'll check out Dawnstar. And you see, Dawnstar's not bright green, and it doesn't look like springtime in Dawnstar. It's still winter, but there's a lot more trees. It's a city full of life. Yeah, Dawnstar is definitely much improved, for sure. Or at least it looks more dense. It looks like, it just looks more packed and full and prettier. And then I really like what the Leaf Eaters 3-in-1 tree mod does for Whiterun. It adds, Whiterun's an old city. It would stand to reason a couple of fucking pine cones must have made their way across the city walls and implanted themselves in here. There should be pines everywhere, and that just looks phenomenal. Along with the noble textures, it really, really is a nice overhaul of Windhelm. Yeah. I might have called it Winterhold. I do that sometimes, but it's Windhelm. Windhelm. Now here is my better graphics for Skyrim load order, and it looks good, but see how it's definitely a little more brown? Then when you go to the Rift up here, now it's more green with the fantasy RPG load order. It's a kind of a subtle difference, but it really kind of gives it more of that fantasy RPG feel. And here's better graphics for Skyrim again. And now we're going to flip it on out and go to the fantasy RPG load order. And I don't know, to me one of the coolest things about Oblivion was always the grass, and this grass mod is the closest thing I can find to that feel of that. All combined together, these mods give Skyrim more of a classic medieval fantasy look, similar to Oblivion. Everybody needs a friend, and your Dragonborn is no different. That's why I've included a few friends in this load order. I've also added amazing follower tweaks and excellent follower management mod. AFT not only allows you to have more than one follower at a time, but it gives you more control over how your followers act and fight, what they wear, and where they call home when you dismiss them. But first, I've added a fully voiced custom AI follower, Livia Salvian, to the load order. You can meet her up in Dragon's Reach and get started with her there. The reason I chose Livia is because she comes with a really neat quest and a ton of lore, all of which circle back to Cyrodiil and Oblivion, which I thought would make her a really nice fit for this load order. But if it turns out you have other custom, fully voiced companions that you prefer to travel with, like Inigo, Caden, Sophia, any of those, you can always put them here in Livia's spot and use them instead, or alongside Livia and use both. Livia does have her own follower behavior setup, and so you're going to want to load her below AFT in your load order so that AFT doesn't try to automatically manage her follower behavior. Unlike what I call basic Skyrim followers, which use Skyrim's basic follower behavior setup, those can go above AFT so that AFT can manage their behavior. Freya Greymane is a basic Skyrim follower. Now there's always hot chicks hanging out up the Skyforge. Let's head on up there and see if maybe we can meet one. Well, what do you know? Maybe we should introduce ourselves. I am the Ancient Gamer. And see, it was as easy as that. You just have to have the courage to make the first move. Let her know how you feel. Usually it works out. Freya is an excellent follower. She comes with really cool armor. She can carry a lot, take a lot of damage, and she's a lot of help in a fight. What more can you ask for? How about Beatrice? Beatrice is a Breton mage follower, also a basic Skyrim follower. You meet Beatrice up in Winterhold at the tavern. Let's see if it works again. I am the Ancient Gamer. Follow me, I need your help. And what do you know? Works like a charm every time. Beatrice is really cool. She's got very powerful magic, and she's really excellent in a fight also. Plus she's got that cool armor from the Witcher 3 female armors. You gotta love that. And once again, Freya and Beatrice are basic Skyrim followers. They can go above AFT so that AFT can help you manage their follower behavior. Any kind of followers that have custom follower behavior, though, need to go below AFT. They need to have a mind of their own. If AFT tries to manage them, they can develop some pretty severe mental health and emotional issues, and you don't want to see your friends have to go through that. Now that you've got a few friends, you're definitely going to need a place to call home. And, with all the great player home mods that have been made over the years out there, Leaf Rest is still my personal favorite. I love Leaf Rest. Now, there are two versions of Leaf Rest available on Bethesda.net, and you definitely want the small file size version, not the large file size version, which has a history of causing crashing at the door when you try to go into it. The small one doesn't do that. It's the same mod, though. It's just better optimized and cleaned up. But Leaf Rest has fucking everything, man. I mean, it's got that great little map room there, and you've got enchanting, alchemy, a spacious and excellent bedroom with a little office area. It's just awesome. There's places for your followers to sleep. If you decide you're going to adopt children and go that route, you can turn that into a bedroom. There's racks for all the gear that you find, shrines. And there's even this really cool little room here. This house asks you if you want to take your clothes off a lot. See, there you go. And it's got this it's built over, apparently, a healing mineral spring. And it provides you with a really cool place to hang out with your followers and just relax a little bit. Take a load off. Chill. Very nice. Love Leaf Rest. So what would an Ancient Gamer Skyrim modding video be without bonus mods, right? Of course, I've got a few bonus mods for you. 3 as a matter of fact. The first one is a tiny little detail mod. I love those. Called Sky HUD Oblivion Preset with pastel map markers. It does a really nice job of mimicking the HUD from Oblivion, the compass, and adds pastel map markers. It's a personal choice, but I think it adds a nice touch. The next 2 bonus mods, I highly recommend you add them to the Fantasy RPG load order for Xbox Series X. But they aren't going to be for everybody, so I did make them bonus mods. But let me repeat, you really should use these, or at least give them a try. These 2 mods change Skyrim so fundamentally that adding them makes this the Skyrim Fantasy RPG overhaul rather than load order. I'm talking about Skyrim Unleveled and Morrowind. These two mods both kick the player off the center stage. Skyrim Unleveled brings an unleveled experience to the world of Skyrim, with stronger equipment but more dangerous foes your adventurer has to be prepared to survive. The world, loot tables, and NPC distribution are no longer revolving around the player. Morrowind fixes the loot, Skyrim Unleveled fixes the NPCs and enemies. They are designed to work together. Finding better weapons and armor will now become a way bigger deal, much cooler moment in the game. Weapon and armor types are now very different from each other. Loot is found where it should be. For example, instead of glass and dwarven weapons, orcs now carry orc weapons. Tread carefully. You can easily find yourself getting your ass kicked and have to flee a dungeon in order to level up and get better equipped. Strategy and tactics become necessary. Leveling up the skill trees and specializing in a playstyle become a much bigger focus, which is what RPGs are all about, right? If you want to be a badass from the beginning of the game, that's fine, but Skyrim Unleveled and Morrowind are not for you. So that's it. We've reached the end. This is the Fantasy RPG load order without the bonus mods. As you can see, I used most of the reserve space but kept the number of total mods in the mid-60s, which helps with performance and save file health. Just load the mods up in exactly the order you see them here, and your game will look and run exactly like mine did in the video. A quick note, you see less grass in the number 2 spot. I put it in the load order as optional. I'm not using it. I'm getting solid performance without it. But if you find your game chugs or you get stuttering, use that. Try the number 40 first and put it there right underneath the patch. Because this load order is relatively comprehensive, I do recommend deleting all saves, clearing your reserve space, and starting with a fresh install of Skyrim. But I have to admit, I didn't do that, and in making this video, I did beat the living shit out of my game, adding mods, pulling them out, etc., and it's running fine for me, loading fast, stable frame rate. However, if you're interested in the long-term health of your save file, it's always a good idea to start with a fresh, clean install and a brand new save. Now, if you want the full, fresh fantasy RPG overhaul experience, use the bonus mods and slide them in right here. I hope you enjoy the new load order as much as I enjoyed making it. Once again, I am the Ancient Gamer, and I'm absolutely thrilled that you watched my video. Do it a big favor and click that like button. It's easy, and it really helps. Looking for more of a long-term commitment? Subscribe to the Ancient Gamer channel. It feels good. Ring the bell for notifications. That feels good too. Stay tuned. I'll be back soon with more stuff.